Hello, everyone. Welcome. We'll give it just a couple minutes here to let more folks jump on, and then we will get started. Well, while we wait, so today we're going to get to talk about a brand new tool that everyone at KeyData is very excited about, and I'm going to tell you a quick story. Before coming to KeyData, for several years, I worked in business development at a rental company in Florida, and every single day was about developing a pipeline of potential homeowners. And back then, it required a lot of manual work, a lot of drive-bys, looking for properties, doing inbound research from real estate agents and that sort of thing. And so, whenever the product team started to tackle this new tool. I felt like it was personally built for me and all of you. So, to kick us off, my name is Tyler Ashby. I'm the Chief Customer Officer here at KeyData. And over the past year, we've had a chance to talk with dozens and dozens of the best growth-minded property managers in the industry. These are operators that are serious about scaling their portfolios, not just managing what they have. And for a long time, Key Data has been really great at helping you optimize your current portfolio. And we've introduced tools in the past to help you to win those conversations with homeowners once you have them. But what we heard from all of our customers that we talked to about this process is that, man, it is challenging. And the question that or the statement that we often hear is, I know that there are owners out there who I can help, but it's really hard to efficiently find them and get in contact with them. You might be piecing together tax records or manually searching Airbnb or Vrbo listings, like I said, driving through neighborhoods, building spreadsheets. And all of that, you may still never be able to answer the question, how can I really solve a problem that this homeowner has? And that stuck with us because we know that the opportunity is so real. So, in a moment, I'm going to pass it over to John, and he's going to walk you through this product that we've developed. He's going to help you understand the problems we're trying to solve and also do a live demo. Um, but again, wanted to say thank you for joining us today. We're really, really excited to show this off. And a couple of housekeeping notes. This will be a fun kind of interactive demo, but also if you have questions as we go through, you don't have to hold them to the end. Feel free to pop them in the Q&A button down in the bottom of the toolkit here, and we'll work on answering those throughout the webinar. This is being recorded and we'll share it with you all tomorrow via email. And if you, by the end of this, decide, hey, I want to explore this further, we, of course, will show you how to do that in the product, but also feel free to reach out to anyone from my team, your partner success managers, and we are happy to set up a call and walk you through it in a one-to-one fashion. So with all that, John, welcome. John is our senior product manager, and he's going to walk us through our new owner acquisition tool. John, take it away.
Thank you, Ty. Really appreciate for all the feedback you gave during this process. Like you said, we might have built it a little bit for you, but we also built it for over the 300 people that registered for this one. So, um, also, just like Ty said, thanking you all. As I was working with our team to build this tool, there were many, many, many conversations with folks, whether from interviews or our beta program, that directly influence this tool. As I go through this demo here in a little bit, almost every single part of this tool that you're going to see was touched by feedback or input from a customer. And so, and I'm sure a number of those folks are in this meeting. I just want to thank you all personally for that. And just couldn't be more appreciative of the time that you took out of your busy day trying to get all these owners. Uh, and so hopefully this tool can help expedite that process based upon those conversations. So huge thank you to you all. Now, in those conversations, we spent quite a bit of time talking about their current process. And a consistent theme, just like you heard from Ty, but what we heard from those folks is that the current process is quite inefficient and very manual. And currently, the process is takes a lot of fragmented research. A couple customers talked about how they'll use county assessor tax data to get to owner information. There's the pulling and taking screenshots of listings. I even told me a couple stories of driving around looking at individual houses, trying to see, is it under new management? Is it a new owner? And aggregating all of that into spreadsheets, right, is often becomes the default place to kind of track all these different owners. So it's hours and hours of manual prospecting just to find who the owner is. Some owners, I don't know, owners, some business development folks even told us it takes 4 to 8 hours just to get contact information. And so it can be really hard to scale your acquisition process when you're manually doing all of these different things. And then even equally as important as just getting their name of the owner is evaluating performance. How well is that property performing? How is it comparing to your portfolio? How is it comparing to similar comps within your market? And that information can often be some of the most valuable information to convince an owner to switch to you and your management. So this is all a very slow process to actually get to the owner that you're trying to acquire. And part of the reason why that is when you go to look at your listings, we're all aware that the OTAs hide the addresses for those listings, right? And so it could be difficult to pinpoint who is the owner of that listing, right? Who is mom and pop shop that owns that house, right? And so it's a very complex, time-intensive problem to solve, but it's also a very valuable problem to solve. Conservatively estimating, it's about 15 to 25,000 in annual revenue for one signed property. And so it's really important that we find a way to do this more efficiently and find ways to do this more at scale for our customers. So how do we go about solving this? Again, this is directly influenced from the feedback from many of you, not only in interviews, but in beta user feedback. But we really wanted to come up with a single workflow to help you find the property, find the opportunity, and find the owner. For finding the property, we're aggregating a variety of different data points that I'm going to talk through here in a little bit. But we found a way to help you identify that OTA listing to that exact address through 95% success rate on single family homes. Additionally, it's not simply enough just to find the property. You need to make sure it's the right opportunity for you. So we're going to give you a variety of different KPIs and key demographics to help you filter down and identify, is this the right opportunity for me? We're also going to show you estimated revenue inside of this. And as part of that, we're also removing owner nights as part of that to get closer to a accurate revenue number. And then lastly, we're going to help you find the owner in that single workflow. And we spent a lot of time on trying to find the correct information of the owner. We're using a multi-source verification system to identify that owner and their contact information. So we're looking at over a dozen different databases to ensure that we are getting the most up-to-date and accurate contact information. We're checking with active carriers to see if it's an active line, whether it's mobile or landline. We're also going to use confidence scores to rank the contact information for you in terms of most reachable and most recent contact. We'll even tell you if it's a entity, so LLC or a trust that owns that property versus a single family. And then equally as important, we're making sure that we're helping you being in compliance with legal standards by letting you know if phone numbers are on a do not call list or if that phone number is a known litigator. So we really want to arm you with the most accurate information about the owner that you're trying to contact and ensure that you're getting the right owner and using the right information to reach them. So, as much as I would love to talk about some more the awesome work we did about this tool, I want to take more time showing you this. So, with that being said, I'm going to dive right into the demo. So, today in owner acquisition, the way that you navigate to this is going to be on your left-hand side nav. So, underneath PM Tools, you simply click owner acquisition and you'll be greeted with a marketing page that will demonstrate to you kind of the different value props that I just spent some time talking through. But then you'll also be able to do self checkout to purchase this tool on your own. Now, in owner acquisition, you will be provided 500 lookups to identify these owners. And I'll walk you through that workflow here in a second. But what's really exciting is that you're going to be able to use those 500 lookups across any market that you currently have access to inside of KeyData or markets you purchase in the future or have access to in the future. So we really didn't want to limit you in terms of where you use those lookups and inside of KeyData. You've already paid for those properties or you're already providing data for those markets, right? We want you to be able to use your lookups wherever you can.
And
Now,
I would just note here for 1 second, John,
yeah,
that includes if you have purchased a premium market, if you're looking to expand your business in a market that you're not currently operating in, but you're buying an additional premium market, we want you to be able to use the tool there as well. So we've really kind of peeled back any of those restrictions. If you're operating or buying that market, you can use this tool in it.
yeah, great call. Now, when you get started with owner acquisition, like I said, you're going to be able to use this in a variety of different markets. The first thing that you're going to do is create a list. When you create a list, it's going to ask you a series of questions. One, what do you want to call this list? And so I created this list. I very, appropriately called it Welcome to Owner Acquisition. And the second thing that it asked me is what market do I want this list to be focused on? And so every list that you create is going to be focused on a market. You're not limited based upon how many lists you create, but it's one way to help organize your information for how you go about searching for these owners. Now, once you select a market, here I've selected Panama City Beach. You have two places to start. You can start from the Add from OTA tab, which is going to show you all live listings from Airbnb inside of that market. Or you can start from Add from All Properties, which is going to be a full database of county tax assessor records, of addresses, and other relevant information. Now, personally, I like to start to add from OTA just because I like to use performance as a way to narrow down my focus. So that's what I'm going to do here. I have the ability to look at this in a list view or a table view, I should say, with a little picture and different columns of the KPIs that I'm going to filter on. I can also do a map view. That's going to be very similar to like a Zillow style that you guys might play with it. Now, I may not necessarily want to get the contact information for every single house in this market. You might want to do that. But if I wanted to really narrow down my approach to align my list with my strategy, I can play with a variety of different filters here. So I can filter on occupancy, ADR, revenue, but there's also this new filter here that you're going to be able to use called management. Now, once I add management, I can filter for listings that are either self-managed or professionally managed. Now, we are using scrape data to power this, so there is no direct data that you're going to see inside of this tool because we want to protect your information, right? So we are using scrape data to infer this. But there are a couple things that I'm going to talk about when it comes to revenue that is improving upon just being purely scrape. But this self-managed flag is going to be really important because maybe those are the owners that you want to target, that you think are more likely to switch to you as a manager as opposed to being, managing on their own. I can also filter on bedroom count. So let's say that I want to focus on 4 to 5 bedrooms. I'm going to go ahead and do that. And then I can give a description here at the top to say, this is going to be my 4 to 5 bedrooms for self-managed inside of PCB. And part of why you might want to do that is if you have other users on your account, they can see your list as well. And so if you wanted to be able to say, hey, Tyler, I want you to look at my list. There's a couple different listings I have here. Would you mind, following up on this owner? You're going to be able to help them identify which list they should be looking at. So as I click through here, like I said, I can click onto this listing. It's going to bring me into the map view. So I can zoom down even further. I can also drop into a street view and it's going to point me at the house that the listing is at. And I can even move up and down the street as well if needed, which is really cool. But if I want to look at this in a little more detail, this listing, I can just go ahead and click view details. So you're going to see a modal pop up about this listing. You're going to have the listing name along with the host name. You're going to be able to see the actual VRBO link if you wanted to click and look at that in a little bit more detail. We also have all the photos from the listing. This is going to be really important when it comes to matching to that address that I'm going to talk about here in a second. But I can click through. I even have a map view right here of where that house is. So that's going to be really helpful for what I'm going to show you here in a second. But I can see the inside of the house and a variety of other pictures. So let's say this is the house this is the listing I'm interested in. I can go ahead and add to prospects. Now, I should have showed you before I did that. I can also see what performance tier this property is. This is going to be a new KPI to show you inside of our tool. Essentially, what we're doing with this is aggregating a couple key KPIs to identify what kind of level of performance it has by aggregating those, and then comparing it with percentile based upon similar comps in that market on that listing site. So really helping you try and understand how well is this property performing, not just in terms of simply 1 or 2 KPIs, but try and aggregate those to help you better understand. Now that I've added this property to my prospects, I'll show you the prospects tab. Now, under the prospects tab, I can see all the properties for this list that I've added to my prospects tab. You can see I've actually already done a few lookups for a couple different properties over. But this property that I added, you're going to see this option called matched. And now, why is matched to property important? As I said earlier, OTA listings don't necessarily give us the exact address for properties. And so we need to find a way to identify what is the exact address so we can look up the owner. And so here, if I click match to property, they're going to be shown a map view. On the left-hand side is going to be that OTA listing. And on the right-hand side is going to be tax assessor records of exact addresses. And so I can zoom in on this OTA. So right now it's saying it's somewhere in this region. Okay. But if you remember when I was clicking through these photos, I saw this exact photo appear of an aerial view. So if I scroll down here, that looks like number 10 right here. So I can just go ahead and select that. I can select that match. And now it's marked it, okay, it's saying it's an institution, which I'll talk about what that here in a second is. But now it's giving me the exact address, the average value or the assessed value on the market of that house. Think of this as like a Zillow style estimate or a Zestimate. But now that I've added this property to my prospects and I've matched it to an actual address, I can hit look up owner contact. Now, when I do that, it's going to do a confirmation modal in front of you. So it's going to say, right now you have 479 lookups that remain. This lookup is going to cost 1 credit, and you're going to have this many after the lookup. Now, part of why that's important is you'll be able to do bulk lookups on properties all at once if you would choose to do so. And then it also tries to remind you, hey, this is how many you have left from what you previously used. Now, if for whatever reason, after I hit confirm lookup, our vast database of contact information doesn't return an owner lookup, we will not deduct a lookup from your account. So we will remind you, hey, or we will tell you, hey, we were not able to find that owner, so we won't deduct that credit. But that is a significant outlier for us. But just want you to understand that we do cover that edge case. Now I'm ready to look up this owner. I'm going to hit confirm lookup. And boom, there it is. So on the right-hand side, I'm able to see who the exact owner is of this house. What is that mailing address of that owner? And I can see very quickly that their mailing address is different from the actual address of this house. And then I can see all the different contact information for this owner. I can see the phone numbers. I can see their emails. I can see if it's a mobile or a landline, whether or not it's on a do not call list, and whether or not if it's reachable or not. So a lot of really valuable information. So I just want you to think about if you started yourselves, if you were looking at that exact listing yourself, how you would go about finding that listing address on your own. You'd be aggregating information from the OTA, you'd be going to a county tax assessor, and then you'd be pulling this into a spreadsheet to track it. And we were able to do that all in a couple different clicks. And probably could have done it a lot quicker if I wasn't explaining how to do it, but you guys get a sense of kind of how this works. So that's how you could start from this on the OTA side, if I wanted to start there. I can also start from the county tax assessor side. Now, I can also do a map view with this. And one really cool thing with this is I can still play with a bunch of different filters here, but I can actually click on individual plots of land to see the actual property. So instead of trying to figure out what the address here is and then copy and paste it somewhere, I can actually click on the individual lot to see the information about that property, just like you would in kind of a Zillow style application. Now, a couple things that are really cool about the add from all property side. We have this filter called absentee only. Now, what that is it lets you know that whoever owns this house has a different mailing address than this address. So this could be a good indicator that it is a potentially a investment property or a rental property. So, they're not living there most of the time, right? So that's a good way to look at it. And then you also have this filter called opportunity. Now, new ownership lets you know that recently that house has had a change of hands in ownership. So if you remember what I was talking about earlier, driving around looking to see if there's been a new for sale sign or sold sign, here simply you're able to see across the entire market who have had all changes in ownership and have absentee owners. I have a couple different clicks. I can also filter by if I want to look at a house, a condo, or a variety of different property types. And then I can also look at those same 4 to 5 bedrooms that I was talking about earlier. All right. Now I can add this property to my list. I can add more than one. If I go in the list view, I could simply select all these if I wanted to and do kind of like a batch add. And so I'm going to look at this 138 Pelican Way. So I'm going to click match to OTA. And so here I have that listing right there. If I go to the street view, I can get a sense that it's this house. And then I like to click around until I find a street view of a house, if possible. So right here, I can see the first suggestion was this house. So I'm going to go ahead and select match there. And then I'm going to look up that owner contact information. I see the same confirmation modal that we talked about before. And boom, I have the owner contact information for 138 Pelican Way. So I can see a do not call list. These have been unreachable, but these landlines have been reachable along with these email addresses. So that is the workflow for how you would identify the owner, look through a couple of different ways of identifying the opportunity that aligns with your strategy. And then lastly, if I wanted to export this information outside of owner acquisition, outside of KeyData, and start getting it into my contact pipelines, I can simply go to that primary owner list and then hit export. So I can export as a CSV, Excel, couple different columns if I wanted to only include certain things. And I can also see all the different lists that this property exists in and what market. And then one thing I'll just add real quickly here before I continue is we've also added some pipeline statuses here inside of your primary owner list. So if you did want to move away from the spreadsheet of tracking and have kind of a single source of truth along with your prospecting, you just simply go to this and you can change it to a variety of different statuses. When you add a property to your prospect list, it will default to a target. But as it moves through your pipeline of outreach, you can mark it as you've outreached to the property manager or the owner, you've contacted them, or hopefully one day you've won that property and acquired them. So that is kind of the end-to-end workflow for owner acquisition inside of KeyData. Again, you simply just go to owner acquisition underneath PM tools, and then you'll be able to check out from there. Ty, anything you want to add before I kind of continue with the rest of the presentation?
Yeah, well, first off, thank you for walking us through this so far. I've been answering some questions in the chat, but there are a couple that you might be able to help us with. So,
Yeah, by the way.
um, homes versus condos. There can
Yes.
be some challenges, and we know from the research we've done, it can sometimes be challenging to match condominiums.
Yeah.
Um, what do we do in that case?
Yeah, absolutely. Condos are definitely their own bundle of fun for sure when it comes to using owner acquisition. Couple things that I would suggest is one is you do have the ability when you filter down to condos. Let me do that for you guys. Filter down to condos. Uh, a couple things that I would do is one when I go do the match. Let me add one of these for sake of example. Scroll down here. Yeah, here we go. Okay, so when I go to match to OTA, we have about a 75% level of accuracy to these condos. And so, again, you have over 500 lookups. One thing I would suggest is once, if you've done the lookup and you find that that owner is not the right owner, you do have the ability to change your match. And so, say I used it first on this one, I'm going to say this is the owner, and I go ahead and do the lookup, and I find that's not the right owner. So here's that known litigator thing that we talked about before. But I can also change the match as well. So I could go back, change the owner's name, not name, change the listing, and then re-look up the owner to identify who that is. So that's one way that you could approach it. Um, what we've often heard from folks is that they're pretty familiar with who's in what condo. Um, but right now, I say that's probably the best way to approach it, Ty.
Yeah, I think that that makes a lot of sense. Another
And it's part
question.
of why we gave 500 lookups, because we recognize that, not everybody's going to need 500, but we also want to give you some wiggle room to re-look up a property if you needed to. Sorry, go ahead, Ty.
Yeah, right in that same vein, we have people asking, is it 500 total or 500 per month? How
Right.
many
500
lookups?
per month.
Yeah.
500 per month.
And one thing I would point out is like what John showed is that you can create multiple lists. And so if you
Yes.
understand that these are your prospects within a particular neighborhood, let's build a list for that. If there
Yep.
are prospects where you might be winning or you believe that this homeowner would be a great match for your program because you could drive additional revenue, let's build a list for that. This gives you the ability to say like, what's my story going to be? What's my winning message with that homeowner? And let's create the list that matches along with that. So not only do you get the contact information, right, but you can also manage the follow up from here. So marking them as John mentioned as that you've reached out to them, that they're in um, your sales funnel. And then in the end, whether or not you've been able to close that. And so the hope here is that you're finding the right homeowners, you're identifying what your winning message is, and then you're also able to do to track that over time.
Absolutely. Any other questions for me, Ty, before I continue?
Um, We've got some questions around how this tool is different from some competitive tools in the space. And there are some interesting places where we believe KeyData wins hands down. And so if you can speak to that a little bit.
Yeah, couple key areas. Um, I won't necessarily go out and say names, but what I will say is, there are a variety of tools out in the industry that focus purely on contact information, which is valuable. Don't get me wrong. That's kind of ultimately where you're trying to go. But time is money and time is energy. And that may not be the right owner or the right property for your portfolio, right? That may not align with your growth. And so if you don't have a concept of performance built into the tool, if that is your focus is to get the right property and the right owner, you're going to have to go somewhere else to get that information. And so that's how I would respond to that piece. Secondly, um, other platforms, nearly everybody in this webinar is an existing KeyData partner. And so one thing when it comes to other tools in the market is that they do require you to move and migrate to different tiers of their offerings to ensure that you get this tool. So that is an acquisition cost to think about, is that what is the switching cost involved to going and adopting another platform that has this function. Additionally, I would say is we have a rather deep database of information. Um, we spend a lot of time finding the right places to source this accurate information, like around contact information. Making sure that we are giving you compliance information about do not call us. That is something that I've seen has not been available at other parts of the platform. And then I would say, lastly, when it comes to what I'll call unit costs for lookups, our unit cost, depending upon if you do monthly or annual, is anywhere between 67 cents to 78 cents per lookup. If you were to go to competitors, they charge at almost double compared to what we do at their base level. And if you wanted to match our unit costs, you would have to spend more than double our annual subscription. Okay, so that's a big piece. And then I would also say some competing tools also, they don't allow you to have more than a couple hundred for the year in terms of lookups. And so we're really the focus, I should say, for everything I've said is giving you the most amount of flexibility to get the most amount of value from our platform and not needing to go somewhere else. What else you got for me, Ty?
We'll do just one or two more here, and then I'll continue to answer them in the chat. But
Sure.
do we have any idea of the reliability of the contact information that we are presenting? And then one other question would be, how often is that recently sold the
Yeah.
entity changing hands? How often
Yeah.
are we updating?
I answer the last one because that's easier to answer. And then I'll get to the first one. So our data is different parts of owner acquisition updates at different frequencies. Some of this updates daily as it relates to kind of the OTA listings and those different pieces. But when it comes to the change of ownership, like you were asking, that tends to be about 4 weeks. Any tool that tries to show you a change in ownership is going to have some sort of lag built in just because of the assessor website updating. So it's pretty close to what, if you were sourcing it yourself on those websites, but it's about 4 to 6 weeks, but closer to 4 weeks. And then in terms of contact information, it's about 95% in terms of reliability that number is correct. Like I said, we are spending quite a bit of time and effort to making sure that we are showing you the most up to date and reachable information. But we also recognize that not every one of those pieces of contact information is going to be right. So that's why we give you as much as possible to help you be able to hit them across multiple channels for your out. Anything else, Ty?
I think that's great. As I said, please continue to send in questions. I'll continue to work on answering them here. And we'll jump back over to, yeah, right there, the slides. Thanks, John.
So we spent a lot of time talking about, the problem earlier in this webinar, where all this data is and the manual nature of pulling that data together. And so hopefully what you can see inside of owner acquisition is that we've really created a single source of truth for all of these different data sources. Brought in your tax assessor data. We brought in OTA listings and their performance data. We've also provided a couple new flags to help inform your research. A self-managed flag is one. Identify those properties that are not professionally managed. Is it an absentee owner? So does that owner not live in that home? Is that mailing address different than the previous? And is it a new owner as well? And then lastly, I just want to emphasize is that you're going to also be able to see properties that used to be under your portfolio as well. So you'll be able to see the out of service dates for those addresses. You will only be able to see your out of service dates instead of other people's, right? So that'd be one way to prioritize your efforts is, hey, that property was really good. I hate that I lost it. I saw it had a change in ownership and it was one of my old properties. I might want to go after it. So you'll be able to do that in this tool. And then lastly, being able to have market relative context. So be able to look at those performance tiers and evaluate how well is that property performing inside of that market. We touched on this a little bit ago. So there are two subscriptions for owner acquisition. There's there's the monthly subscription for $3.99 a month, or the $4,000 per year. And the only difference really there is if you look at the monthly times 12, the 4,000 a year is essentially getting 2 months free at the monthly cost. Uh, Now, both of these get you 500 lookups per month. I know that was a question that we had earlier. And then you're able to use those lookups in any market you can access inside of KeyData that either you're providing data for or have purchased. And so, just to kind of summarize in terms of the value of this, one property being signed via owner acquisition pays for many years of owner acquisition. So, would love for you all to get started inside of this tool as soon as possible. And so part of how you can do that to get started today is, like I showed you earlier, go to PM Tools, select Owner Acquisition, and start winning your owners today. Really built this tool to help you find the right properties, the right owners. You would prefer to scan the QR. This will also take you straight to that being said, I'll leave this slide up. And Ty, if there are any more questions that have come through that I can address with the time at the end of the meeting, I'd love to do so.
Yeah, let's hit a couple more here. If there are a lot of rules around do not call lists and things like that. And you did show us in the platform where someone might be on a do not call list.
Mhm.
Um, are are we checking that regularly, updating the
Yes.
information if someone's been added to a do not call list? Feels like participants might want to make sure that we're being careful in this area.
Yes, that flag gets updated daily. So every bit of contact information from a phone number perspective is checked on that do not call list every single day.
It also sounds like some folks might be interested in purchasing more than 500
Yeah.
lookups. Um, Talk to us a little bit about some options here. Um,
Yes. So for, for our launch right now, we only have the ability to do 500. So that is the key thing right now. That being said, we are actually looking at what other options there might be. We've heard from a couple of folks that 500 isn't nearly enough for them. And so that feedback is exactly what we want to hear, and we'll continue to evaluate here in the coming weeks and months if we need to offer more options.
let's talk for a moment about the the performance data that we're showing
Yeah,
in the tool. So, I want to be really clear that our data science team has taken the publicly available OTA data and helped to determine what performance tier they might be in. And so that is in relation to other properties within the market that are comparable. And so you have different ways of identifying whether or not this is an underperformer. It may be based on revenue projections from that OTA data that we show based on the last 12 months and what's upcoming. Or it could be based on those performance tiers. And so you have a lot of flexibility in the tool to look at this in different ways. I also like to stress this is OTA data. While you can access properties that are not just on the OTAs, the performance data that we're showing there is based on OTA data. John, anything I missed in that?
No, you hit that right on the head. And I know that's a key distinction to make in terms of the difference in OTA versus direct. Um, and what I'll just harp on there that Ty said is that our data science team has worked really hard to identify ways to improve those revenue estimates from scrape data. And we're looking at even more ways to continue to improve upon that in the future. So, uh, no, I think you hit everything else exactly right, Ty.
And there is also a question about whether you can purchase this month by month or in an annual subscription. We do have both options available.
Yes.
There is certainly a hefty discount for annual subscribers. But if that's not the path that you want to take, there is the $3.99 a month version available as well. We've gotten that question a couple times in the chat. All right. John, anything else to take us home here?
No, well, I would just add that, this has been a long time coming tool. We've heard this from a variety of different customers wondering why we didn't have it. And so our sales team has obviously mentioned that to us a couple times. And so we're just very proud to be able to get this out today and would love any and all feedback that you guys have as you continue to get started in the tool. We want to make this as best as possible. And then lastly, again, just want to give one final thanks to those folks that participated in beta and sat down with me and our team to just talk about their current process. And I just really hope that this continues to help make that process more efficient and help them start winning owners.
Thanks so much, John. As I've mentioned in the chat, if you have questions or you'd like to schedule a one-to-one session, you can always reach out to your partner success manager. If you're not sure who that is, feel free to send us a message at support@, keydatadashboard.com, and we'll be happy to connect you with that person. Thanks so much for the time today. Thanks for joining us, and we hope you have a great rest of your day.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.